All right, guys, I thought I'd take it outside today, do something a little bit different, give you a different background. The Bitcoin cycle top is what I want to talk about in today's video. Now, this video is not designed in any particular way to get your emotions hyped up. I don't want to do any sort of urgent, emergency, Bitcoin's crashing, Bitcoin's pumping, any sort of video like that. In this video, we are talking about the longer term cycle here for BTC. Obviously what I think is going to happen, because of course you're on my channel here and it's just based on the analysis and the research that I've been doing year upon year upon year. And hopefully you've been finding value from that over the years. If you have, subscribe to the channel. Basically here almost every single day, unless I'm traveling, of course. And at the moment I'm over in Thailand for a friend's wedding. You might know him from his channel, Ravi Sharma, Search Property from Australia. I'll leave a photo here. But anyway, that's not the point of today's video. Bitcoin cycle top is the point of today's video. I'm obviously going to talk about the traditional finance space, the economic cycles. I'm going to drop in some altcoin thoughts here as well, along with the, of course, real estate cycle. So, without further ado, Bitcoin cycle top. What I think is going on. I think this period is basically designed now to flush out a lot of people. We've looked at many of the metrics that have shown there is, at least there is some quiet period now. So that is confirmed. Yes, we had a flush out the other day, big dump down for BTC and for altcoins. And some altcoins obviously have been continuing to trickle down quite a lot. And they continue to lose ground against Bitcoin value, one, and two, which is most important for everyone, the USD value, of course. So I think this is going to continue, even if we do see some upside moves, some flushes down and some more rallies to the upside. But more importantly, in terms of BTC, yes, that day we saw big moves down and then we saw a big bounce back, and most of the charts are looking relatively okay. I wasn't 100% convinced that we have seen the final low yet. There hasn't been enough done to suggest that that low is definitely in. But like we saw in 2024, like we've talked about in 2023, like we've talked about on the channel in 2022, that June and November low, even if it goes lower, in terms of a percentage, it's probably not that bad overall. Now, I might come back to bite my words in, a month, 2 months, 3 months time. I think this is still all part of Q1 playing out, where there's some indecision in terms of what Trump might do or not do, whether his words in terms of what he's saying and then the executive orders that he's signing, and then whether that is actually going to follow through into the work getting done and achieving the results. I think that is still what investors, the smart money at least, are trying to figure out. And the way I believe that to be the case is in terms of what I'm seeing on the charts. And so overall, and a big reason why I don't think the Bitcoin cycle is over by any means, even if you see day-to-day movements of a few percent up or down, or maybe 5 or 10% up or down, right? Big reason why I don't think the Bitcoin cycle is over, like we haven't seen the final top yet, is because there still seems to be a lot of money floating around in the traditional finance systems, in your stock markets in the US, stock markets around the globe, and for at least for meme coins and cryptocurrency, you're seeing that risk flush out of the market after they did 10, 20, 50 X's, and all these altcoin seasons that people thought were yet to happen have happened, but just in different scales at different times, and the money was basically cycling through different sectors at different times, right? And then everyone's sort of expecting it all to happen at once. So that's pretty much like one of the big reasons why I don't think the Bitcoin cycle top is in, although it's not going to be an easy ride for Q1. That's basically been my opinion for over a month now, or coming up to sort of a month and a half, 2 months since we saw that December top. You can go back and check it out in the videos as well on the channel, as I brought up many reasons why I thought that to be the case. Now, in terms of the traditional markets and why I think we can still see that investors are trying to decipher what the news is and what happens next from here, is because for one, the S&P 500 continues to remain in a long-term uptrend. We saw some bearish news over the last couple of days, and the price continued to go up for the S&P 500. We saw the same thing for the NASDAQ as well. Doesn't mean that we can't see lower prices. You know, for the S&P 500, I've labeled many times where my major breakdown points are for the macro cycle, right? You know, for your long-term bull market cycle, that comes in at around the August low. I believe it was around 5,100 points for the S&P 500. So none of those have been broken yet. So I think it's all still relatively okay. And the same deal for the NASDAQ for your tech stocks, obviously the risk assets, the growth assets, and of course, many assume or many put Bitcoin, and to obviously an extent altcoins, even though altcoins are a lot more riskier, they put that into the tech sector for obvious reasons, right? So I haven't seen either of those markets break down, which means smart money investors aren't seeing a loss of confidence in those markets either, because, well, the main pivot points remain intact or even through any of those wall of worry events that we've had over the last several months, and you could label it down to the last several years. You know, we've seen many big events come and go. You name it, every single time. You know, we've been here on the channel for years. There's always someone saying, well, you haven't factored this particular event in or that particular event, and they come and go, and those comments come and go, and those people come and go, and the market keeps going up. You know, it's still a bull market. Eventually, yes, it all comes to an end, but in terms of the smart money and what we're seeing on the charts, those, that money doesn't think it's over yet. Therefore, I'm going to continue to ride the trend as well, even if we see some sort of day-to-day stuff that, scares the market, like we saw on Monday. Was it tariffs? Who knows? Was it the Bank of Japan? Who knows? You know, like, you can name any one of those things and you'll be right. That's okay. It doesn't matter at the end of the day. What matters is where is the money going, and we just got to find out where that money is going and put our money there before all of the money gets there. You know, we need to see some of the money going there. Otherwise, well, then you don't have a trend. So yeah, that's the big one there with the Bitcoin cycle top. I've talked about price targets to the downside. Should we see any breakdowns of this current Monday low? Now, I'm going off the top of my head from all of the numbers that I've collated with the research there. And I remember it was Monday. We had a low there. I think it was around 91,000 for BTC at 50% levels. Same prices there, roughly those high 70s, low 80s. Doesn't mean it has to get there, but that would still be a critical support level there that you would essentially, you don't want to see the monthly close underneath that level to remain in a long-term uptrend. So obviously the big thing there, stock markets continuing up. And I've even shown that on some other charts, looking at how those stock markets have essentially go hand in hand with the Bitcoin bull markets through 2017. Let's start at 2012, 2013, the bull market. The S&P 500 basically rode straight up into that top, barely a kink in the monthly trend for the S&P 500, which means investors saw a lot of confidence there. Bitcoin bull market took off. That was 2012, 2013. 2016, 2017, as we got into 2017, just straight up for the S&P 500. Lots of confidence in the markets, therefore lots of confidence in riskier assets. And of course, that's BTC. That's 8 years ago now. You might think it's a little less risky now. Whatever, not the point. We just need to know where the money's going. Those markets rode up. S&P 500, NASDAQ rode up. Bitcoin rode up really hard. And then 2020, 2021, S&P 500 also rode up into that top. S&P 500 topped in January 2022, first or second day of the year. So call it the end of 2021, just like the NASDAQ, right? NASDAQ topped in November of 2021. Bitcoin topped in November of 2021. Then they all started to come down in 2022. And of course, the S&P 500 also had a pretty tough 2018, which meant Bitcoin was also having a pretty tough 2018. The S&P 500 didn't really have a clear 2020, 2014 or 2015 was the toughest year, and Bitcoin didn't necessarily have a great time either. You know, it dropped about 80 or 90%. So we're still seeing strong uptrends for the S&P 500, even with this, instability over the last few weeks with Trump coming in. Therefore, higher and higher prices, I think. of course, my analysis, my thoughts here. So that's why I'm still very confident on this cycle. Still seeing a lot of money flushing in there. Now, in terms of altcoins, you made it this far in the video, thanks. Like, subscribe to the channel. I'm usually behind the desk with charts. If you prefer this, let me know. Hit that like button as well. I do enjoy coming out here a little bit more often. You get to see a little bit of the blue and hear the birds in the background and some of the flowers in the trees. Yes, it's a bit darker, but you know, that's what happens when you film outside. You don't have the perfect lighting. Altcoins. We've seen a lot push up and a lot pull right back. Even from the January move, somewhere around the 9th, 10th to the 13th of January, from that point, many altcoins dropped at least 50% and are now down about 35% from that particular point. That was also a scary time. There was big liquidations and all that sort of stuff, right? So I don't know if all of the altcoins are going to have another significant run throughout 2025 when all of this money starts to decide that, yes, the bull market is well and truly back on for the S&P 500 and for the NASDAQ, and then you start to see that money flow out into Bitcoin, and then, of course, into altcoins, which essentially is, you know, the money just sort of moves into riskier and riskier assets. I think now more than ever, you're going to have to be finding those cryptos that are much in a stronger position than others that have already had a bit of a move in 2024. But of course, keep those on your radar just in case you start to see some strength in them. And of course, go with the narratives that are moving the easiest. You just want to go with the stuff that's moving. Don't try and overcomplicate it, I guess. And on that point, some of the stuff that is still looking relatively okay, strange it is, XRP is still up there. Yes, it's had its 48 or 53% correction, which essentially is what I was looking for, between that 50 and 70%. So there could still be a little bit more if we see things continue to come down, but it might not be that far. You know, we're looking at a low price there of something like, from memory, $1.60 to $1.80, and I know it's already tested that $1.80 region. Solana still holding up okay. You know, it hasn't broken any of the major 50% levels. It has had a pretty decent pullback. Sui, I think, still needs a bit of time to digest its 10x that it did again in 2024. And, you know, we've looked at PEPE and ADA and Link in the past. Aave, which we talked about in the weekly report as well. You can find a link to that in the video description down below. That's the crypto and economic weekly report that we do with TIA. And Ethereum, of course. So Ethereum has pushed down again to $2,100, basically the previous support. It's not in the strongest position compared to the other altcoins, the major altcoins that we're talking about, but nonetheless, it's still holding its ground. It's still putting in higher lows, therefore it's still on the radar. And yeah, it's one of my, no, this is personally with my own portfolios, it's one of my largest positions, and you know, it's not doing the greatest. You know, it could be in the same position that XRP was in a few months ago before it took off 500%. But I don't think ETH is going to do that 500% move. You know, XRP had 8 years of getting absolutely destroyed to get a 500% move, and Bitcoin did a 500% in its 2 years. You know, so that's all the stuff that I'm weighing up as well. I think that pretty much sums it up. Real estate cycle, yeah, it's still going strong. We haven't seen a turnaround in that yet, and we're still seeing the government come out with more ways and reasons, and the banks with more ways and reasons as to why they can continue to create credit, even though it's not in the form of turning on the money printers. You know, that's been one of the biggest maybe lessons, at least for our members, and then also for guys who've been following the channel for many years. That was the talk about, that was a talk in 2022 that we had to see the money printers turn back on in order for the real estate market to go up. And we didn't. We didn't have to see that because, for one, the government can create credit, make things easier, you know, change tax laws, and two, the banks are creating credit. So they're obviously creating it with their debts, and they're also changing rules along with the government, changing laws and rules and regulations where you may not need that 20% deposit, but now we can buy a property with 10% deposit. So essentially, they are jacking up your leverage capabilities by doubling it, right? So at first you could do 20% and you had to you can borrow 80%, you have to put down 20%, so it's a 5-to-1. Then you can put down 10% and borrow 90%, right? So that's a 10-to-1. So that just by switching those little regulations, bam, you can you allow people to borrow more, which then allows more people into the market, which allows the markets to keep going up when everyone thinks it's impossible because it's way too expensive. So that is all still going on. Bitcoin, whether it drops another 10 or 20% from here, we'll wait and see, right? I'll keep following that up on channel, so make sure you subscribe, like the content if you want to see more like this while I'm over here in Thailand for another week, and of course when I'm at home. And I'll keep updating you with my thoughts about the markets overall, where we are in the economic cycle, and of course TradFi, Bitcoin, and cryptos. Thanks again, guys. I'll see you at the next video. Take care. Peace out. You guys got saved by the bell. Vincent was crying in the other room, picked him up. So yeah, you got a nice short video this time. Well, at least I think it's short. All right, say bye. Ciao, guys.